The notification chimed at 11:47 p.m., just as I was peeling off my sweat-soaked boxing gloves at Murphy's gym. One simple text that would unravel my entire world. Staying at Craig's tonight. Don't wait up. Love you. L. I stared at the screen, my phone trembling slightly in my bruised hands. Lauren had sent this to me by mistake. That much was obvious from the casual tone. This wasn't meant for her husband of 8 years. This was meant for someone else. Someone who already knew about Craig. Craig Doyle. The name tasted like copper pennies in my mouth. I knew Craig from Lauren's work events, a smooth-talking real estate mogul with perfectly capped teeth and a handshake that lasted just a second too long. He owned half the luxury developments sprouting up across Chicago's north side, like expensive weeds. Lauren always spoke about him with this breathless admiration that made my skin crawl. He's just so ambitious, Evan, so driven. You should really try to network with him. Right. Network. I drove home through the rain-slicked streets, my beat-up Honda struggling up the hills toward our Lincoln Park apartment. Our apartment, though I was starting to wonder how much of it was really ours anymore. Lauren had been working late more and more, coming home with designer bags I couldn't afford on my architect's salary, talking about new opportunities, and expanding her client base. The apartment felt cold when I walked in, not just temperature-wise, though Lauren had always kept the thermostat low. It felt empty, hollow, like a museum display of what a marriage should look like. Wedding photos on the mantel, vacation souvenirs gathering dust, a half-finished bottle of wine from some anniversary I could barely remember. I sat on our leather couch, Lauren's choice too expensive, too white, and stared at that text message until the words burned into my retinas. Staying at Craig's tonight. Not working late at the office, not client dinner running long, staying at Craig's, like it was the most natural thing in the world. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was meant for me. Sorry, honey. Big client crisis. We'll be home late. Don't wait up. Love you. I actually laughed out loud. The sound echoed off our pristine white walls, sharp and bitter. Lauren had just sent me a cover story for the text she'd accidentally sent me first. She was getting sloppy, and that gave me a twisted sense of satisfaction. I walked to our bedroom and opened Lauren's jewelry box, a mahogany monstrosity her mother had given her. Inside, beneath the tangle of gold chains and pearl earrings, I found what I was looking for, our joint account statements. Lauren handled our finances. I'm better with numbers, she'd always said, which was laughable since I was the one who calculated load-bearing walls and structural engineering for a living. But I'd been happy to let her manage the money, one less thing to worry about. Now, as I flipped through the statements, I realized what a mistake that had been. Withdrawals I didn't recognize, transfers to accounts I'd never heard of, a $15,000 cash withdrawal from last Tuesday, the day Lauren had claimed to be visiting her sick aunt in Milwaukee. My hand shook as I added up the numbers. Over the past 3 months, nearly $40,000 had disappeared from our joint savings. Money we'd been setting aside for a house, for our future, for the family we'd talked about having someday. I thought about Craig Doyle's Rolex, his Italian leather shoes, his penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. I thought about Lauren's new wardrobe, her mysterious late nights, her sudden interest in expanding her professional network. The pieces clicked together like a blueprint finally making sense. I poured myself 3 fingers of bourbon, the good stuff Lauren had bought for special occasions, and sat back down on that white leather couch. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual nighttime energy, sirens wailing, the L train rumbling past, the sound of rain against our windows. Tomorrow, I decided, I'd start digging deeper. Tonight, I'd just sit here and let the betrayal wash over me, like cold water. My phone buzzed one more time. Lauren again. Crisis resolved. Heading home now. See you in the morning. I checked the time. 12:23 a.m. If she was really heading home from the office, she'd be here in 20 minutes. If she was coming from Craig's penthouse on the other side of town, it would take at least 45 minutes. I set a timer and waited. 52 minutes later, I heard her key in the lock. Evan, you awake? I pretended to be asleep on the couch, bourbon glass hidden behind a throw pillow. Through barely cracked eyelids, I watched my wife of 8 years tiptoe past me toward our bedroom. Her hair was messed up, her lipstick gone, and she smelled like expensive cologne, not the kind I wore. She paused in the doorway and looked back at me. For just a moment, her face showed something I'd never seen before. Guilt mixed with calculation, like she was running numbers in her head. Then she disappeared into the bedroom, and I heard the shower start running. I finished my bourbon and stared at the ceiling, listening to the water run and run and run, as if she could wash away whatever she'd been doing for the past few hours. That's when I made my decision. Lauren and Craig wanted to play games? Fine. I'd been designing buildings for 12 years, creating structures that could withstand earthquakes, hurricanes, and time itself. Now, I was going to design something different. The perfect revenge. I woke up on the couch with a crick in my neck and the taste of bourbon coating my tongue like regret. Lauren was already gone. No surprise there. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter in her precise handwriting. Early meeting. Coffee's ready. Love you. Love you. Right. I called in sick to work, something I hadn't done in, 3 years. My boss, Janet, sounded concerned, but I assured her it was just a stomach bug. Not entirely a lie. The truth about my marriage was making me physically nauseous. First stop, Murphy's Gym on Division Street. Rosa Rosie Jimenez had owned Murphy's for 15 years, ever since her father passed and left her the aging brick building. She was tough as nails, with graying hair always tied back in a ponytail and hands that could probably crush walnuts. She'd been my trainer, my therapist, and my friend since I first started boxing there 5 years ago. You look like hell, she said when I walked in. The gym was mostly empty at 10 in the morning, just a few retirees working the heavy bags and a college kid doing sit-ups in the corner. Feel like it too. I sat down on a bench and told her everything. The text message, the missing money, the mysterious late nights. Rosie listened without interrupting, occasionally grunting or shaking her head. So, what are you going to do? She asked when I finished. I don't know yet. Confront her, I guess. Get a lawyer. Rosie snorted. Confront her? Kid, she's been lying to your face for months. You think she's suddenly going to start telling the truth because you asked nicely? She had a point. You want my advice? Don't do anything stupid. Don't get emotional. If you're going to take her down, you do it smart. You gather evidence first, then you hit her where it hurts. What do you mean? I mean her reputation, her career, her precious social status. Women like your wife, they care more about how they look to other people than anything else. I left the gym with Rosie's words echoing in my head. She was right. Lauren had always been obsessed with appearances. Her Instagram was a carefully curated gallery of success, professional headshots, charity galas, expensive dinners. She'd built her entire identity around being the perfect wife, the successful PR executive, the woman who had it all. What would happen if that image cracked? My next stop was Lauren's office building downtown. I'd been there dozens of times for company parties and holiday events, so the security guard knew me. I signed in as visiting Lauren Mitchell and took the elevator to the 14th floor. Evan! What a nice surprise! Lauren's assistant, a young woman named Jessica, looked genuinely pleased to see me. Lauren's in a meeting, but I can let her know you're here. Actually, I was hoping to surprise her. Is she in her office? Conference room B, big presentation with the Doyle development team. My stomach clenched. Of course, she was meeting with Craig. I'll just wait in her office, if that's okay. Jessica hesitated. Well, I suppose that's fine. Just don't touch anything important. Lauren's office was a shrine to her own ambition. Awards on the walls, photos with Chicago politicians and celebrities, a bookshelf full of business leadership titles she'd probably never read. Her computer was locked, but her desk drawers weren't. I felt like a criminal rifling through my own wife's belongings, but I pushed the guilt aside. She'd stolen from our joint account. Turnabout was fair play. In the bottom drawer, underneath a stack of client folders, I found a manila envelope with no label. Inside were printouts of text messages, not the kind of texts you'd expect to find in a professional setting. Can't wait to see you tonight, Craig. The things you do to me. I can barely concentrate. At work. L. When we're together in Cabo next month, I'm never letting you out of bed. C. Cabo. We'd never been to Cabo, but apparently Lauren and Craig had a trip planned. I photographed every message with my phone, my hands shaking with a mix of rage and adrenaline. There were dozens of them, going back 4 months. The progression was clear. Professional flirtation evolving into an emotional affair, then into a full-blown relationship. But the worst part wasn't the intimate conversations. It was the other messages, the ones about me. Evan's been suspicious lately. We need to be more careful. L. Don't worry about your husband. Once we get the Riverside project approved, we'll have enough to start over somewhere new. C. I feel bad sometimes, but then I remember how boring my life was before you. L. Boring. 8 years of marriage, and I was boring. I was photographing the last message when I heard voices in the hallway. Lauren's laugh, bright and fake, the kind she used with clients. I shoved the envelope back in the drawer and sat down in the chair across from her desk, trying to look casual. Evan? Lauren appeared in the doorway, her face cycling through surprise, confusion, and something that might have been panic. Behind her stood Craig Doyle, tall and silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Hey, honey. Thought I'd take you to lunch. I stood up and smiled, the same smile I'd been giving her for 8 years. Hope I'm not interrupting anything important. Of course not. Lauren's voice was too bright, too cheerful. Craig, you remember my husband, Evan. Craig stepped forward with that politician's smile and extended his hand. Evan, great to see you again. Lauren's told me so much about you. I'll bet she has. His handshake was firm, confident, the grip of a man who'd never doubted his place in the world. I wanted to break his fingers. All good things, I hope, I said. Absolutely. Lauren says you're an architect. That must be fascinating work. It has its moments. I'm actually working on a project that might interest you, a mixed-use development on the north side. Maybe we could grab coffee sometime and discuss it. I watched Craig's face carefully. A flicker of something, concern, calculation, crossed his features before the smile returned. I'd love that. Lauren has my contact information. Great. I'll be in touch. Lauren was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. In 8 years of marriage, I'd never once expressed interest in networking with her contacts. I was the guy who hid in the corner at office parties, who made excuses to skip client dinners. Well, Craig said, I should let you two lovebirds enjoy your lunch. Lauren, we'll continue our discussion tomorrow. Of course. Thanks for coming in. After Craig left, Lauren turned to me with narrowed eyes. What was that about? What was what about? The networking thing. Since when do you want to have coffee with my clients? I shrugged. You're always telling me I should be more ambitious. Maybe it's time I listened. She studied my face for a long moment, looking for cracks in my performance. I kept my expression neutral, boring old Evan who never caused trouble. Okay, she said finally. Let's go get lunch. We went to a little Italian place around the corner, the kind of restaurant we used to frequent when we were first married and couldn't afford anywhere fancy. Lauren picked at her salad while I made small talk about work, the weather, anything but the envelope full of text messages I'd just discovered. You seem different today, she said asodox. Different how? I don't know. More present, I guess, like you're actually paying attention. Maybe I'm just happy to see my wife. She smiled at that, a real smile for the first time in months. For just a moment, I could see the woman I'd fallen in love with 9 years ago, smart, funny, ambitious, but not ruthless, before Craig Doyle and his promises of a better life. I love you, Evan, she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. I love you too, I replied, and meant it. That was the hell of it. Despite everything, despite the lies and the stolen money and the text messages, I still loved her. But love wasn't going to be enough to save us. Not anymore. That evening, I sat in my car outside Craig's penthouse building, watching the windows glow gold in the twilight. At 7:30 p.m., Lauren's BMW pulled into the parking garage. She'd told me she was having dinner with a college friend. Another lie to add to the collection. I drove home and poured myself another bourbon. Then I opened my laptop and started researching Craig Doyle, diving deep into public records, business filings, news articles. If I was going to play this game, I needed to understand my opponent. What I found was interesting. Very interesting indeed. Craig Doyle wasn't just successful. He was dirty. It took me 3 days of digging through public records, cross-referencing business filings, and following paper trails, but the picture that emerged was crystal clear. Shell companies, offshore accounts, city contracts awarded under suspicious circumstances. Craig had built his empire on a foundation of bribes, kickbacks, and political connections that would make a Chicago alderman blush. The best part? Lauren's PR firm had been helping him cover it all up. I was sitting at Murphy's gym, laptop balanced on a weight bench, when Rosie walked over with 2 cups of coffee. You've been here every morning for a week, she said. What did you find? I turned the screen toward her. Your tax dollars at work. She whistled low as she scrolled through the documents I'd compiled. This guy's been robbing the city blind. How'd you figure all this out? Public records are public for a reason. You just have to know where to look. I'd spent years navigating city planning departments and zoning boards for my architecture work. The skills translated nicely to investigative research. So what's the plan? That was the question I'd been wrestling with all week. I had enough evidence to destroy Craig's business and probably send him to prison. But that would also destroy Lauren's career and reputation. Despite everything, I wasn't sure I wanted to go nuclear. I'm still thinking about it. Rosie gave me a look. You're still thinking about protecting her. She's my wife. She's a lying, cheating thief who's been planning to run off with her boyfriend. Hard to argue with that logic. My phone buzzed. Text from Lauren. Working late again tonight. Don't wait up. I showed Rosie the message. Want to bet she's not at the office? Sucker's bet. I made a decision. Want to go for a drive? Craig's penthouse was in a converted warehouse in River North, all exposed brick and floor-to-ceiling windows. We parked across the street and waited. At 8:15 p.m., Lauren's BMW pulled up to the valet stand. There she is, Rosie muttered. Your devoted wife. Lauren stepped out wearing a black dress I'd never seen before, something that probably cost more than most people's rent. She looked beautiful, confident, alive in a way she hadn't looked at home in months. The valet took her keys with the familiarity of repetition. This wasn't her first visit. "You seen enough?" Rosie asked. "Not yet." We waited another hour. Through the penthouse windows, I could see silhouettes moving around. Lauren and Craig playing house in his glass tower while I sat in my Honda across the street like some pathetic private detective. My phone rang. Lauren. "Hey, honey. Just wanted to check in. This client crisis is turning into a real nightmare." I could hear jazz music in the background, the clink of wine glasses. "That's too bad. When do you think you'll be home?" "Probably not until very late. You should just go to bed without me." "Okay. Love you." "Love you too." She hung up. Through the penthouse window, I watched her silhouette return to Craig's arms. "Okay," I said to Rosie. "Now I've seen enough." The next morning, I called in sick again and drove to Lauren's office. This time, I wasn't there to snoop. I was there to plant a seed. Jessica looked worried when she saw me. "Evan, is everything okay? You look terrible." I did look terrible. I'd been surviving, on bourbon and rage for a week, and it showed. "I'm fine. Is Lauren in?" "She's at a client meeting. Should be back in an hour." "Actually, I was hoping to talk to you. Could we grab coffee?" Jessica looked confused but agreed. We went to a Starbucks around the corner, where I ordered a large black coffee and tried to figure out how to phrase what I needed to say. "Jessica, how long have you worked for Lauren?" "About 2 years. Why?" "In that time, have you noticed anything unusual about her relationship with Craig Doyle?" Jessica's face went through several expressions: surprise, discomfort, understanding. I'm not sure I should be talking about this. I'm her husband. I'm worried about her." Jessica stirred her latte nervously. "They do seem to spend a lot of time together, more than with her other clients." "How much time?" "Well, he comes by the office at least twice a week. They have lunch meetings, dinner meetings. Last month, they flew to Miami together for a client conference. But I couldn't find any conference on the schedule." Miami. Add that to Cabo on the list of places my wife had been without me. "Jessica, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Do you think they're having an affair?" She looked down at her coffee cup. "I don't want to get anyone in trouble." "You won't. I just need to know." "Yes," she whispered. "I think they are." I thanked Jessica and drove home, my head spinning with possibilities. I now had confirmation from multiple sources, financial evidence, and a growing file of Craig's illegal business practices. I could destroy both of them with a few phone calls. But first, I wanted to see how far they were willing to go. That evening, Lauren came home early for the first time in weeks. She seemed nervous, fidgety, like she had something on her mind. "Evan, we need to talk." My heart rate spiked. Had someone told her about my conversations with Jessica? Had she figured out that I knew? "What about?" "I've been thinking about our future, about what we want from life." She sat down next to me on the couch, closer than she'd sat in months. "I know things have been difficult between us lately. I know I've been distracted with work." "It's okay. I understand." "No, it's not okay. I've been neglecting our marriage, and that's not fair to you." She took my hand. "I want to make it up to you. I want us to start fresh." For a moment, hope fluttered in my chest. Maybe she'd realized what she was throwing away. Maybe there was still a chance to save us. "I'd like that," I said. "Good. Because I have an idea. What would you say to a change of scenery? Maybe a move to somewhere warm, somewhere we could start over." "Like where?" "I don't know. California, maybe. Or Mexico. Cabo San Lucas is supposed to be beautiful." And there it was. The trap, baited and ready. That sounds expensive. Well, I've been saving some money, and with your skills, you could find work anywhere. Saving money, with funds stolen from our joint account. It's an interesting idea, I said carefully. But what about your job? Your clients? There are other jobs, other clients. Sometimes you have to take risks to get what you really want. And what do you really want, Lauren? She looked me in the eyes, and for just a moment, I saw something real there. Regret, maybe, or fear. I want to be happy, she said. Don't you want to be happy? Of course I do. Then think about it, okay? We could leave all this behind. Start fresh, somewhere new. After she went to bed, I sat on the couch and thought about her offer. She wanted me to run away with her, using money she'd stolen while having an affair with another man. The audacity was breathtaking, but it also gave me an idea. If Lauren wanted to play games, I'd give her a game she'd never forget. I opened my laptop and started typing an email to the Chicago Tribune's investigative reporting team. The subject line read, "Real estate corruption in City Hall." But I didn't send it. Not yet. First, I wanted to see just how far down the rabbit hole my wife was willing to go. The setup was almost too easy. I told Lauren I was interested in her Cabo plan, but I needed to understand our finances better. Could she show me where this saved money was coming from? She hemmed and hawed, making excuses about complicated investment accounts and tax implications. Trust me, she kept saying. I've got it all figured out. Trust. The word tasted like poison. Meanwhile, I'd been busy. A few carefully placed phone calls to former colleagues, some strategic name dropping, and suddenly, Evan Mitchell was the architect everyone wanted to meet. I scheduled a lunch meeting with Craig for the following Friday, ostensibly to discuss a fictional development project. "You're playing with fire," Rosie warned me as I worked out my frustrations on the heavy bag. "This guy's connected. He's dangerous." "So am I," said, throwing a combination that made the bag swing wildly. "No, you're not. You're a nice guy with a steady job and a 401k. He's a criminal with lawyers and politicians in his pocket." Then I guess I better be smarter than him. Friday arrived gray and drizzly, typical Chicago, autumn weather. I met Craig at Gibson's, an expensive steakhouse downtown where the city's power brokers made their deals over dry-aged beef and single malt whiskey. Craig was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I approached, flashing that politician's smile. "Evan, great to see you. Thanks for reaching out." We shook hands, and I resisted the urge to squeeze hard enough to break bones. "Thanks for meeting me. I know you're a busy man." "Always have time for Lauren's husband. She speaks about you constantly." "I'll bet she does." We ordered drinks, bourbon for me, scotch for him, and made small talk about the weather, the Cubs' disappointing season, the usual Chicago conversation starters. Craig was charming. I had to give him that. He had the kind of easy confidence that came from never having to worry about money or consequences. "So," he said after our drinks arrived, "Lauren mentioned you have a project you wanted to discuss." "That's right. Mixed-use development on the north side. Residential units, retail space, maybe some office components. I'm thinking about 200 units, mid-range pricing." Craig's eyes lit up. This was his bread and butter. "Sounds interesting. What's the location?" I named a street corner that didn't exist, in a neighborhood that was mostly industrial. Craig nodded along, either not knowing the area or not caring about the details. "Financing in place?" "Working on it. I was hoping you might have some insights into the approval process. I know you've had success navigating the city bureaucracy." Something flickered in Craig's eyes. Caution, maybe. It's all about relationships, he said carefully, knowing the right people, understanding how the system works. I imagine it helps to have friends in City Hall. Doesn't hurt. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. Between you and me, I'm willing to pay for the right kind of help. I know how these things work. Craig studied me over his Scotch glass. What exactly are you asking me, Evan? I'm asking if you can make problems go away. Zoning issues, environmental concerns, community objections. I'm asking if you can grease the right wheels. The silence stretched between us. Craig was trying to figure out if I was serious or if this was some kind of trap. Smart man. That's a very serious conversation, he said finally. I'm a very serious person when it comes to business. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. You know, you're not what I expected. What did you expect? Lauren always described you as, well, let's say more conservative, risk-averse. Maybe I'm tired of playing it safe. Craig signaled the waiter for another round. Tell me, Evan, what does Lauren think about this project of yours? She doesn't know about it yet. I wanted to get my ducks in a row first. Smart. Lauren can be protective of your reputation. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Like they discussed me, analyzed my weaknesses, decided I was someone who needed protection from my own ambitions. She's a good wife, I said. The best. You're a lucky man. I know. We finished our drinks and shook hands again. Craig promised to make some calls and get back to me about potential opportunities. I thanked him and walked out into the gray afternoon, feeling like I needed a shower. But I'd gotten what I came for. Craig Doyle had just offered to help me bribe city officials. On the record, in a public place, with witnesses. My phone was recording the entire conversation. That evening, Lauren was waiting for me when I got home. She was sitting on the couch, still in her work clothes, with a bottle of wine open and 2 glasses poured. How was your day? She asked. Interesting. Had lunch with Craig Doyle. Lauren's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. You did what? Had lunch with Craig. You know, networking. Like you've been telling me to do for years. How did that happen? I called him, set up a meeting. We talked about a development project I'm working on. Lauren set down her wine glass with shaking hands. What development project? Something I've been putting together on the side. I thought Craig might be able to help with the city approval process. Evan, you can't just... You don't understand how these things work. What don't I understand? She was panicking now, trying to figure out how much damage I might have done to whatever arrangement she and Craig had. The real estate business is complicated. There are relationships, protocols. You can't just call up someone like Craig and expect him to help you. He seemed pretty willing to help. What exactly did you discuss? I gave her an edited version of our conversation, leaving out the parts about bribery and corruption. Even so, Lauren looked like she was going to be sick. You need to be careful, Evan. Craig's not the kind of man you want to get on the wrong side of. Is that a threat? It's a warning. From someone who cares about you. I almost laughed. Someone who cares about me. Right. I appreciate your concern, but I can take care of myself. Lauren stood up abruptly. I need to make a phone call. She disappeared into the bedroom and closed the door. I could hear her voice through the walls, urgent and worried, but I couldn't make out the words. When she came back out, her face was pale. Everything okay? I asked. Fine, just work stuff. She sat back down and picked up her wine glass, but her hands were still shaking. Evan, about that Cabo trip we discussed. Maybe we should move up our timeline. How much sooner? Soon, like next week soon. That seems sudden. Sometimes opportunities don't wait. I studied my wife's face, looking for any trace of the woman I'd married. All I saw was fear and calculation. "Let me think about it," I said. That night, Lauren took a sleeping pill and was out cold by 10 p.m. I waited until midnight, then slipped out of bed and went to her purse. Her phone was password protected, but I knew the code, our wedding anniversary, which she apparently hadn't thought to change. Her recent call log told the story. 3 calls to Craig after she got home, each lasting less than a minute. He wasn't answering, which probably meant he was as worried as she was about our lunch meeting. But it was her text messages that really caught my attention. A thread with someone named Maya Chen, Lauren's best friend from college. "Emergency. Need to talk. Call me ASAP." Maya's response came an hour later. "What happened?" "Evan's getting suspicious. He met with Craig today. I think he knows." "Calm down. What exactly did he say?" "He's acting different, asking questions. We might need to accelerate the timeline." "How much sooner?" "Days, not weeks." "That's risky. The money isn't all in place yet." "Then make it happen. I can't keep this up much longer." I screenshotted the entire conversation, then put the phone back in Lauren's purse. My hands were shaking with rage. Maya Chen. I remembered her from our wedding, a sharp-eyed woman with an MBA and opinions about everything. She'd never liked me, always thought Lauren was settling for someone beneath her station. Apparently, she'd been helping orchestrate my wife's betrayal. I poured myself a bourbon and sat in the dark, thinking. Lauren and Craig weren't just having an affair, they were planning to disappear with stolen money, and they had help. This was bigger than I'd realized. But that also meant I had more targets for my revenge. I opened my laptop and started researching Maya Chen. If she wanted to play games with my marriage, I'd make sure she understood the consequences. The gloves were coming off. Maya Chen lived in a Lincoln Park townhouse that probably cost more than I'd make in 5 years. Investment banking paid well, apparently. I spent Saturday morning parked across the street, watching her routine through telephoto lens I'd borrowed from a photographer friend. She was methodical, precise. Yoga at 7 a.m., coffee shop at 8:30, grocery shopping at 10. The kind of person who planned every detail of her life, including, apparently, the destruction of mine. My phone rang. "Lauren." "Where are you? I woke up and you were gone." "Hardware store. Working on that project I mentioned." "Oh, well, hurry home. I'm making brunch." Lauren hadn't cooked brunch in 3 years. She was definitely panicking. I drove home to find her in the kitchen, frantically whisking eggs while bacon burned in a pan. She was still in her pajamas, hair messy, looking more frazzled than I'd seen her since her father's funeral. "Smells good," I lied. "I thought we could spend the day together. Talk about our plans." "What plans?" "Cabo, remember? Our fresh start?" She served me a plate of rubbery eggs and charcoal bacon, then sat down across from me with a bright, fake smile. "I've been thinking about what you said, about wanting to be more ambitious. Maybe this is our chance." "Our chance for what?" "To really go for it. Take some risks. Live the life we've always talked about." We'd never talked about running away to Mexico with stolen money, but I didn't point that out. "It's a big decision," I said. "The biggest decisions usually are." My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "We need to talk. Meet me at Navy Pier, North Side, 2 p.m. Come alone. C. Craig wanted a meeting." Perfect. "Who was that?" Lauren asked. "Work stuff. I need to go in this afternoon." "On Saturday?" "Client emergency." Lauren's face went through several expressions: suspicion, fear, resignation. "Okay, but don't be gone long." Navy Pier on a Saturday afternoon was packed with tourists and families, the perfect place for a clandestine conversation. I found Craig at the north end, leaning against the railing, staring out at Lake Michigan. He looked older in daylight, more tired. "Thanks for coming," he said without turning around. "Thanks for the cryptic text message." He smiled, but it wasn't friendly. "Let's walk." We strolled along the pier, weaving between clusters of tourists taking selfies. Craig kept his voice low, conversational. "I've been thinking about our lunch yesterday, about your development project. And I did some checking. There's no property for sale at the address you mentioned. In fact, that address doesn't exist." My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice steady. "You must have misunderstood. I said I was looking at several potential sites." "No, Evan. I understood perfectly. You lied to me." We stopped walking. Craig turned to face me, his expression cold. "The question is why? What are you really after?" "I don't know what you mean." "I think you do. I think you know exactly what you mean." A group of teenagers ran past us, laughing and shoving each other. Normal people living normal lives, not standing on a pier discussing lies and betrayal. "Here's what's going to happen," Craig said. "You're going to go home to your wife. You're going to forget about development projects and lunch meetings. You're going to mind your own business." Or what? Or things might get complicated for you, professionally speaking. It was a threat, thinly veiled but unmistakable. Craig had the connections to destroy my career with a few phone calls. "Are you threatening me, Craig?" "I'm giving you advice, free of charge." "I appreciate that, but I don't think I need your advice." Craig's jaw tightened. "You're making a mistake, Evan." "Probably. I make a lot of those." I walked away, leaving him standing at the railing. My hands were shaking, but not from fear, from anticipation. Craig Doyle had just threatened me in a public place. Another recording for my growing collection. When I got home, Lauren was pacing the living room like a caged animal. She'd changed into jeans and a sweater, but she still looked frazzled. "How was work?" she asked. "Productive. Very productive." That evening I told Lauren I needed to run some errands. Instead, I drove to Maya's townhouse and rang the doorbell. She answered wearing yoga pants and a Northwestern sweatshirt, a glass of white wine in her hand. "Evan? What are you doing here?" "Hi, Maya. Sorry to bother you. I was hoping we could talk." She looked nervous, which told me everything I needed to know about her. Involvement in Lauren's schemes. "Talk about what?" "Lauren, our marriage, your advice?" Maya glanced over her shoulder, then stepped outside and closed the door behind her. "I don't think that's appropriate." "Why not? You're her best friend. You've been giving her advice for months." "I don't know what Lauren's told you, but..." "She hasn't told me anything, that's the problem." Maya wrapped her arms around herself, shivering in the cool evening air. "Evan, I think you should go home." "In a minute. First, I want to ask you something. Do you think Lauren's happy?" "That's between you and Lauren." "Is that what you told her when she asked for your help planning her escape to Mexico?" Maya's face went white. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. The offshore accounts, the stolen money, the fake client meetings. You've been helping her plan the whole thing." "You're crazy." "Maybe, but I'm not stupid." I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot of her text conversation with Lauren. Maya stared at the screen, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. "How did you get that? Trade secret." Maya looked around frantically, as if checking for witnesses. "Evan, you don't understand the situation." "Then explain it to me." "I can't. It's complicated." "Everything's complicated, Maya. That doesn't mean you get to destroy other people's lives." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm trying to help my friend." "By helping her steal from her husband and run off with her boyfriend?" Maya's composure cracked. You have no idea what Lauren's been going through, what she's been sacrificing for you. Sacrificing? She's been living in a luxury apartment, driving a BMW, and shopping at Nordstrom. What exactly has she sacrificed? Her dreams, her ambitions. She could have been running her own firm by now, but she held back because of you. Because you needed stability, security, a wife who wouldn't overshadow you. The words hit like physical blows. Is that what she told you? It's what I observed. Lauren's brilliant, Evan. She's capable of so much more than playing housewife to a small-time architect. Small-time architect. The contempt in her voice was unmistakable. So this is all my fault? For not being successful enough for your friend? It's nobody's fault. It's just life. People grow apart. They want different things. And what Lauren wants is Craig Doyle's money. What Lauren wants is a chance to live up to her potential. I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed off the townhouse walls. Her potential as a thief? You're twisting everything. Am I? Because from where I stand, it looks like my wife and her best friend conspired to rob me blind and disappear with a corrupt real estate developer. But maybe I'm missing something. Maya stepped back toward her front door. I think you should leave. I think you're right. I turned to go, then stopped. Maya, one more thing. What? When this all falls apart, and it will fall apart, remember that I gave you a chance to do the right thing. I left her standing on her doorstep and drove home through the dark Chicago streets. The pieces were all in place now. Lauren, Craig, Maya, they'd all shown me exactly who they were. Now it was time to show them who I could be. Sunday morning, Lauren announced she was going to yoga class. I knew she was lying. She'd canceled her gym membership 6 months ago. But I let her go. I had work to do. I spent the morning organizing my evidence, financial records, photographs, audio recordings, text message screenshots, everything laid out chronologically, building a story of betrayal and theft that would be impossible to deny. Then I made 3 phone calls. First, to Detective Ray Morrison at the Chicago PD's Financial Crimes Unit. Ray and I had worked together on a construction fraud case 2 years earlier. He owed me a favor. Evan, good to hear from you. What's going on? I need to report a theft, about $40,000 from a joint bank account. Domestic situation? You could say that. Ray sighed. Those are always messy. You want to come in tomorrow and file a report? Actually, I was hoping you could meet me today. I have evidence of a larger scheme involving city corruption and bribery. That got his attention. How large? Large enough to make the front page. We arranged to meet at 2 p.m. My second call was to Janet Morrison, my boss at the architecture firm. Evan, you feeling better? Much better. Janet, I need to ask you something confidential. Has anyone contacted you about me recently? Anyone asking questions about my work or my reputation? Funny you should ask. Craig Doyle's office called Friday afternoon. Wanted to know about your experience with large-scale developments. What did you tell them? The truth, that you're one of our best architects, but you've mostly worked on smaller projects. Why? I'll explain later. Janet, if anyone else calls asking about me, can you let me know immediately? Of course. Evan, is everything okay? It will be. My third call was to Marcus Webb at the Chicago Tribune. Marcus had written several exposés about city corruption over the years. He was always looking for new sources. Marcus Webb. Mr. Webb, my name is Evan Mitchell. I have information about real estate corruption involving city officials and a major developer. What kind of information? The kind that comes with audio recordings and financial documents. I'm listening. We arranged to meet at 4 p.m. Lauren came home at noon, flushed and sweaty, like she'd actually been exercising. She was getting better at the details of her lies. "How was yoga?" I asked. "Great. Really centering." She kissed my cheek. "What did you do this morning?" "Just some reading, thinking about our conversation, and I think you're right. Maybe it is time for a change." Lauren's face lit up with genuine happiness, and for a moment I felt like a monster. Then I remembered the stolen money, the lies, the plans to disappear, and the feeling passed. Really? Really, but I want to understand the logistics. How exactly would we make this work? Lauren sat down next to me, animated in a way I hadn't seen in months. "Well, I've been setting aside money from various projects, consulting fees, bonuses, that kind of thing. And Craig has some investment opportunities that could really pay off." "What kind of investment opportunities?" "Real estate developments in emerging markets, places where American dollars go further." "Like Mexico?" "Exactly." "And Craig's involved in this how?" "He has connections, people who can help us navigate the legal requirements, set up the right kind of business structures." It was impressive, really. She'd constructed an entire fantasy where their theft and corruption were just smart business decisions. "When would we leave?" "Soon, maybe next weekend." "That's very soon." "I know, but the opportunity won't wait forever." I nodded thoughtfully. "I'll need to give notice at work. Tie up some loose ends." "Of course. But Evan, let's keep this between us for now. I don't want people trying to talk us out of it." "Our secret." She kissed me again, longer this time. "I love you. I know I haven't been the best wife lately, but this is going to change everything." "I'm sure it will." At 2 p.m., I met Detective Morrison at a coffee shop near police headquarters. Ray was a big man with graying hair and tired eyes, the kind of cop who'd seen everything twice. "So what do you have for me?" he asked. I slid a folder across the table. "Financial records showing systematic theft from my joint account. Audio recordings of a real estate developer offering to bribe city officials. Text messages discussing money laundering and flight to avoid prosecution." Ray flipped through the documents, his expression growing more serious with each page. "This Craig Doyle character. I know that name. He's been on our radar for a while." "For what?" "Suspicious city contracts. Properties that get approved despite community opposition. The kind of thing that suggests someone's getting paid off." "Well, now you have proof." Ray closed the folder. "Evan, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? Once I start an investigation, there's no going back. Your wife could face serious charges." "She made her choice." "What about you? Are you prepared for what comes next?" I thought about Lauren's kiss, her excitement about our fresh start, the way she'd looked at me like I was her salvation instead of her victim. "I'm prepared." At 4 p.m., I met Marcus Webb at a bar downtown. Marcus was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with the eager look of a reporter who smelled a big story. "So you have evidence of corruption involving Craig Doyle?" I gave him copies of the same documents I'd shown Ray Morrison, plus some additional research I'd done on Craig's business practices. Marcus whistled as he read. "This is good stuff. Really good. But I'll need to verify everything independently before we can publish." "How long will that take?" "A week, maybe 2. We'll need to contact city officials, review public records, maybe get some people on the record." "I might not have 2 weeks." "Why not?" "The subjects of your story are planning to leave the country very soon." Marcus looked up from the documents. "How soon?" "Days." "Then we better work fast." That evening, Lauren cooked dinner, actually cooked, not just heated up takeout. She was practically glowing with anticipation. "I gave my boss informal notice today," she said over pasta and wine. "Told him I might be taking an extended leave of absence." "What did he say?" "He wasn't happy, but he'll survive." "What about you? Have you thought about how to handle things at your firm?" "I'm working on it." My phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Stop digging or face consequences." I showed Lauren the message. "Any idea who this might be from?" Her face went pale. "No, that's really creepy." "Should I be worried?" "I don't know. Maybe you should call the police." The irony was almost too much to bear. My wife, who was planning to rob me and flee the country, was worried about my safety. "I'm sure it's nothing," I said. That night, Lauren took another sleeping pill and was unconscious by 10 p.m. I waited until midnight and then slipped out of the apartment and drove to Craig's penthouse building. The parking garage was mostly empty, just a few expensive cars scattered across the vast space. Craig's silver Porsche was in its usual spot, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. I'd brought a small bag of tools from my workshop. Nothing fancy, just basic equipment for minor automotive adjustments. It took me about 20 minutes to loosen the lug nuts on his front wheels, just enough so they'd come loose after a few miles of driving. Not enough to cause serious injury, but enough to strand him somewhere inconvenient and expensive. As I worked, I thought about Ray Morrison's question. Was I prepared for what came next? The truth was, I didn't know. A week ago, I'd been a boring architect with a boring life and a wife who thought she loved me. Now I was sabotaging cars in parking garages and feeding information to reporters and police detectives. But I did know one thing. I was tired of being the victim in other people's stories. It was time to write my own ending. I finished with the Porsche and drove home through the empty streets. Tomorrow, everything would start falling apart for Lauren and Craig and Maya. I could hardly wait. Monday morning brought chaos. I was drinking coffee and pretending to read the newspaper when Lauren's phone started ringing. First call came at 7:30 a.m. Craig, probably wondering why his car had broken down on Lakeshore Drive. Second call at 7:45. Maya, sounding panicked about something. Third call at 8 Eggshil. Lauren's boss, asking her to come in early for an urgent meeting. "Everything okay?" I asked, as Lauren grabbed her purse and keys. "Just work stuff. Crisis management." She kissed me goodbye, distracted and worried. "I might be late tonight." "No problem. I'll probably work late, too." After Lauren left, I called Janet and told her I'd be taking a personal day. Then I drove to Murphy's gym where Rosie was waiting with coffee and a knowing look. "You look like the cat that ate the canary," she said. "Do I?" "What did you do?" I told her about the weekend's activities, the meetings with the detective and reporter, the conversation with Maya, the automotive sabotage. Rosie whistled. "You don't mess around when you decide to mess around." "I'm just getting started." My phone rang. Detective Morrison. "Evan, we need to talk. Can you come in this afternoon?" "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. We just need to discuss the timeline for moving forward with your complaint." "I'll be there at 2. After I hung up, Rosie gave me a serious look. "You sure about this? Once you pull this trigger, there's no going back." There was no going back the moment Lauren sent that text message. Maybe. But revenge is a funny thing. Sometimes it costs more than you expect. I spent the morning working out, hitting the heavy bag until my knuckles bled through the gloves. Physical activity helped clear my head, gave me focus. At noon, my phone buzzed with a text from Lauren. "Crazy day at work. Might not make it home for dinner." I replied, "No worries. I'll grab something with Rosie." Another text. 5 minutes later. "Love you. Love you too." It was probably true on both sides, That was the hell of it. Underneath all the lies and betrayal and theft, we probably did still love each other. But love wasn't enough anymore. Maybe it never had been. At 2 p.m., I met Detective Morrison at police headquarters. He led me to a small conference room with fluorescent lights and institutional furniture. "We've started preliminary inquiries based on your information," he said. "Financial Crimes is reviewing the bank records, and we've reached out to some contacts in the city planning office." And it looks like you're right. There are irregularities in several projects Craig Doyle's been involved with. Approvals that came through unusually fast, community objections that were ignored, that sort of thing. What happens next? We build a case, gather more evidence, interview witnesses. Eventually, we'll make arrests. How long does that take? Months, usually. Maybe longer. I don't have months. They're planning to leave the country this week. Morrison leaned back in his chair. Then we might need to accelerate our timeline. At 4 p.m., Marcus Webb called. "I've been checking out your information," he said. "This is bigger than I thought." "How big?" "Craig Doyle's been involved in at least 6 questionable developments over the past 2 years. We're talking millions of dollars in city contracts, all approved despite obvious problems. When can you publish?" "I'm working on it. But Evan, you should know. Word is starting to get out. People are asking questions about Doyle, about his business practices. He's going to know someone's been talking." "How long before he figures out it's me?" "Not long." I drove home through rush hour traffic thinking about timelines and consequences. Lauren and Craig and Maya thought they had everything under control, but their world was about to implode. The question was, would I survive the explosion? Lauren's BMW was in our parking spot when I got home, which was unusual for a Monday evening. I found her in the kitchen, pacing back and forth while talking on her phone. "I understand that, but we need to move faster," she was saying. "Yes, I know it's risky, but staying is riskier." She saw me and quickly ended the call. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" "Fine, yours?" "Busy, really busy." She looked frazzled, more stressed than I'd seen her since this whole thing started. "Evan, we need to talk about our timeline." "What about it?" "I think we should move it up. Leave Wednesday instead of this weekend." "Wednesday? That's 2 days from now." "I know it's sudden, but there are some developments at work that make it advisable to leave sooner rather than later." "What kind of developments?" Lauren sat down at the kitchen table and rubbed her temples. "There might be an investigation into some of our clients. Nothing serious, just regulatory stuff, but it could get messy." "What kind of investigation?" "Financial irregularities, possible corruption charges." I sat down across from her, trying to look concerned instead of satisfied. "That sounds serious." "It's probably nothing, but I don't want to get caught up in it. Sometimes it's better to be somewhere else when these things blow up." "And Craig? Is he involved in this investigation?" Lauren's face went carefully blank. "Why would you ask that?" "You mentioned he has investment opportunities for us. If there's an investigation into corruption, I'd want to make sure we're not getting involved with someone who's in legal trouble." "Craig's fine. He's very careful about these things." "I'm sure he is." My phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" Heavy breathing, then a distorted voice. "Stop what you're doing, or you'll regret it." I hung up and showed Lauren the phone. "Another one." "That's the 3rd call like that," she said, looking genuinely worried. "Evan, maybe we should call the police." "Maybe we should." That evening, Lauren spent most of her time on the phone, having hushed conversations in the bedroom while I watched television in the living room. I could hear fragments through the walls, words like timeline and exposure and damage control. Around 10 p.m., she came out and sat next to me on the couch. "Evan, I need you to trust me about Wednesday. I know it seems sudden, but it's important." "I trust you." "Good. I've already booked our flights. We leave at 6 a.m. "What about my job? I haven't given notice." "You can call in sick. We'll figure out the details later." "What about our apartment? Our stuff?" "We'll take what we need and deal with the rest later." "Evan, I know this is scary, but sometimes you have to take a leap of faith." "A leap of faith. With stolen money and a corrupt developer and a best friend who thought I was a small-time architect holding back his brilliant wife." "Okay," I said. "Wednesday it is." Lauren smiled and kissed me. "You won't regret this. I promise." After she went to bed, I sat in the dark living room and made 3 phone calls. First, to Detective Morrison. "They're leaving Wednesday morning. If you're going to arrest them, it has to be tomorrow." Second, to Marcus Webb. "Whatever you're going to publish, it needs to be tomorrow. They're fleeing the country." Third, to Maya Chen. "This is Evan. We need to talk. Meet me at Navy Pier tomorrow at noon, or I go to the police with everything I know about your involvement." Then I poured myself a bourbon and waited for Tuesday to arrive. The endgame was finally here. Tuesday morning, Lauren was up before dawn, packing frantically while trying to look casual about it. She'd laid out clothes for me, khakis, polo shirt, like we were going on vacation instead of fleeing the country with stolen money. "I'm so excited," she said, folding lingerie I'd never seen before into her suitcase. "This is going to be the adventure we've always talked about." We'd never talked about any adventures, but I didn't correct her. "What time do we need to leave for the airport tomorrow?" 4 a.m. I want to get there early. Avoid any delays." My phone buzzed. Text from Detective Morrison. "Warrants approved. Moving at 2 p.m. I deleted the message and smiled at my wife. I should probably pack too. "Good idea. And Evan? Pack light. We can buy whatever we need when we get there." I spent the morning throwing random clothes into a duffel bag while Lauren made phone calls and transferred money between accounts on her laptop. She was efficient, methodical, like she'd been planning this for months, which, of course, she had. At 11:30, I told Lauren I was going out to grab lunch and handle some last-minute errands. "Don't be gone long," she said. "I want us to spend our last day together." Our last day. She had no idea how right she was. Maya was waiting at Navy Pier when I arrived, sitting on a bench overlooking the lake. She looked older than she had, on Sunday, worn down by stress and guilt. "What do you want, Evan? I want you to understand what's going to happen this afternoon." "What are you talking about?" I sat down next to her. "At 2 p.m., the police are going to arrest Craig Doyle on charges of bribery, corruption, and money laundering. At the same time, they'll be arresting Lauren for theft and conspiracy." Maya's face went white. "You called the police?" "I did more than that. I called the newspapers, too. By tomorrow morning, this whole story will be front-page news." "You bastard. You destroyed your own wife." "No, Maya. You and Lauren destroyed my wife. I'm just cleaning up the mess." Maya stood up abruptly. "I have to warn them." "Go ahead." "It won't matter. The warrants are already signed." She started to walk away, then turned back. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that I gave you a chance to do the right thing. You chose not to take it." "And what happens to me?" "That depends on how cooperative you are with the police." Maya stared at me for a long moment. "I never thought you had it in you." "Neither did I." I watched her walk away, then sat on the bench for a few more minutes, looking out at Lake Michigan. In a few hours, my marriage would be over, my wife would be in jail, and my life would be completely different. I should have felt sad or guilty or something. Instead, I felt free. At 1:45 p.m., I was parked across the street from Craig's office building, watching through binoculars as unmarked police cars took positions around the block. Detective Morrison had invited me to watch the arrest, a professional courtesy for a cooperative witness. At exactly 2:00 p.m., a dozen officers entered the building. 5 minutes later, they emerged with Craig in handcuffs. Even from across the street, I could see the shock and rage on his face. My phone rang. Lauren. Evan, where are you? Something terrible has happened. What's wrong? Craig's been arrested. The police came to his office with warrants. Arrested for what? Corruption charges, bribery. They're saying he's been paying off city officials for years. I tried to sound shocked. That's awful. Are you okay? I'm scared, Evan. What if they think I was involved? What if they come after me? Why would they come after you? Because I work with him. Because people might get the wrong idea about our relationship. What kind of wrong idea? Silence on the other end of the line. Lauren, what kind of wrong idea? I can't talk about this on the phone. Where are you? Running errands. I'll be home soon. Hurry, please. I hung up and drove home, taking my time. Lauren's BMW was in the parking lot, along with 2 unmarked police cars. I found her in our living room sitting on the couch between 2 detectives. She looked small, fragile, nothing like the confident woman who'd been planning to steal my money and disappear with her boyfriend. Mr. Mitchell? One of the detectives stood up. I'm Detective Sarah Chen. We need to ask you some questions about your wife's business relationship with Craig Doyle. Of course, whatever I can do to help. Lauren stared at me, searching my face for something. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition of the man she'd married. Evan, tell them. Tell them I would never do anything illegal. I looked at my wife, sitting there in our living room, surrounded by evidence of her betrayal. The expensive clothes, the new jewelry, the laptop full of financial crimes. I'm sorry, Lauren, I can't do that. The detective read her rights while I watched from the doorway. Lauren kept looking at me, her face cycling through confusion, realization, and finally, a cold fury I'd never seen before. You did this, she said, as they put the handcuffs on. You called them. Yes, I did. Why? Because you stole from me. Because you lied to me. Because you were going to disappear with your boyfriend and leave me with nothing. I was trying to save us. You were trying to save yourself. They led her toward the door, past the wedding photos and vacation souvenirs and all the other artifacts of our failed marriage. Evan, she said, stopping in the doorway. I did love you. I want you to know that. I know, I said. I loved you too. After they left, I sat alone in our apartment, surrounded by the debris of our life together. Lauren's suitcase was still open on the bed, half packed with clothes for a trip she'd never take. My phone rang. Marcus Webb. The story's going live in an hour, he said. Front page, above the fold. Real estate mogul arrested in city corruption scandal. What about Lauren? She's mentioned as a co-conspirator. Her PR firm's already issued a statement distancing themselves from her actions. And Maya? Cooperating with authorities in exchange for reduced charges. I hung up and poured myself a bourbon, the good stuff Lauren had been saving for special occasions. This seemed special enough. Outside, Chicago hummed with its usual evening energy. Inside, I sat in the ruins of my marriage and thought about what came next. Tomorrow, I'd wake up alone for the first time in 8 years. I'd go to work and face the questions and the gossip and the sympathy. I'd start the process of rebuilding my life from scratch. But tonight, I was going to sit here and drink Lauren's bourbon and remember what it felt like to be the kind of man who fought back, the kind of man who won.